Spend a few moments in Q&A. What questions do you have?
You raise your hand, not over him, Mike.
That must have been really effective. Really effective.
Put myself out there. Maybe somebody else will do after.
Your name is Bruce, right? Yeah.
This is a hypothetical, very real situation, okay? So it makes sense when you say don't inherit conflict. God didn't assign to you. However, what if I inadvertently inherit it? So, for example, I install someone as a head over a ministry who I have a very strong relationship with, very direct relationship with. However, over time, learn that that person is not good at relationships. And when I'm not around, has conflict with other people.
I call that pollination.
Right. So I could coach those people when they have issues with said person to say, okay, this isn't mine. You can go deal with that. But now I have an issue because I can't have that person continually having unhealthy relationships. But since they never do it in front of me, the only way I can know about it is if I was told about it. So now if I go to address that person, they're going to know that it was other people who came to me who have not addressed it with them yet. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's what I and Henry Cloud have called a Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. Yeah,
So I can disappear?
yeah, that's right. Or you can cause other people to disappear. I am from New Jersey, so yeah.
Fine.
So I'm going to use this as a teaching tool just for a brief moment, if you're okay with that.
Please.
And I'm glad to speak into it. But based on what we all talked about, what advice would you give to Bruce?
Have the other people go directly to him first.
So have the other, that's fulfilling Matthew 18. So, okay. Have other people, those other individuals go directly to him. Have you tried that?
Yes. No, I can do that. Oh, sorry. Yes, I can do that. But then after that's resolved, once I coach them to do that, I still feel like I have to take care. I can't let this person stay in leadership. But I have to address that without saying I was told, I feel like. And I haven't actually seen it, so I can't address it by saying, I've seen you in your relationships in an unhealthy manner. I can't continue to let you lead.
So what can you own? What can you own as his supervisor? Help him out. This is a teaching moment. How would you advise him? What is it that he, as this person's supervisor, owns in this situation?
I just had a thought. I don't know if it's what you would do or not, but if you would have a meeting with all of you there, and then you could help like mediate, like, so it'd be like a place where they could, without being on their own, like, but have them like say, when you did this, it made me feel that way, and talk through it with all the parties together.
So you want to do an intervention. Yeah, you want to do an intervention. Okay, there's another hand.
Real simple, but could you have some type of self-reflection that they maybe could reflect on their leadership? I don't know if it would come up or not, but maybe ask the right questions.
Good, okay. I think you are wanting, Bruce, I think you're wanting something tangible. Chris has his hand up. Nelson, did you have yours? No? You don't want to touch this one, right?
Just the thought that you're dealing with two different conflicts. One is the conflict that you have with the person you're supervising, and the other one is the conflict that the people experiencing the negative relationship have with him. So if you have two triangles, you have to work two systems.
Beautifully stated, Chris. You caught that. And so now Now, Bruce, you are triangled, but you're triangled into something not so obvious. Do you want to help Bruce understand how he's now triangled? This is hard stuff, right? It's the subtle things that get us nailed. I've taught triangulation for a couple of decades. I've learned this. I'm family systems trained, and I get nailed with triangles all the time. I get sucked into them. And then I go, oh my gosh, I'm triangled. I'm triangled. Really?
It would be the people that work for him that go to the boss he appointed are having trouble with him, so they came to him instead of going directly to the boss.
So he's triangled on that level, but he's triangled a little bit more subtly here. Remember, not everything that we're triangled into is a person.
Perceived responsibility?
Say again?
Is it perceived responsibility that he really doesn't have responsibility in one of those spheres? It's hard to completely picture it all.
That's a very interesting perspective to take on this. And yet, as the supervisor, he kind of does have responsibility, but how he uses that in this situation is the challenge. There's a hand over there.
Perhaps the perception that he has to pretend he hasn't heard it from anybody else.
Yeah, thank you. You've named this very appropriately. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
So you're triangled into these other people and their conflict without actually being triangled in it. You're trying to redirect them appropriately to redirect them, but now you're sitting as his supervisor with all of the fruit of his behavior. What do you do with that if you're supposed to not reveal where you got that information? Do you see the subtlety of all of that? It's one of those webs that we get as supervisors or as leaders, we get sucked into all the time. When we see the fruit of somebody's behavior, and we have to own the fruit of it without taking on responsibility for the triangling, we actually get triangled. And here's the other subtle part of his leadership. If he steps in to fix it, he solidifies the triangle.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend that Bruce do? There's a hand there.
Oh, yeah. A thought, but I used to work in a public school.
Oh, you talk about triangles.
Exactly. And what we used to do is like give the parents a survey, give the students a survey, and give the teachers a survey. So then we'd get the feedback from the survey, and that was a reason then that we could have meetings and discussions on how to progress forward. So everybody had a voice, even those who were fearful of giving their voice, they would have a voice. And then those things can be collected as data information and then used as a place to then proceed with, let's talk about some of these issues. And then so it was an open air thing that we could all improve.
Yeah, great. What she's describing in other leadership circles is what we call a 360-degree performance review. And so you could invite that individual to choose, for example, 4 persons within the church or whatever. You're talking about a church, right? 4 persons within a church, and then you choose 4 persons with their knowledge. You say, I'm going to choose 4 individuals. You can choose 4. We're going to send out a survey. It's basically a 360-degree performance review, and then we're going to compile all of the information. Then we'll sit down and talk. And we're going to do this to everybody so that there's not one person pulling out of, you're not nailing one individual that you wouldn't apply to everybody. And so that's a good strategy to at least get feedback. And so you could sit down with the individual and go, can you help me to understand? This is what I'm hearing from the individuals that we selected. What do you have to say about that? Now you have exposed the unspeakable. And so it's a strategy that actually does work in systems. Anybody else want to, Barth?
So run into this kind of scenario a lot over the years, and I've learned a lot from the School of Hard Knocks. But just slightly different angle. One thing that I landed on that seemed to be effective is, in addition to some of the other things discussed here, coming up with clear outcomes as goals based on the feedback that you're hearing, which drives accountability. But doing that in a coaching way with folks, helping, and what I've found is when you start to hold people accountable to clear outcomes, generally one of two things happen. They really want to change or they don't, and that becomes really obvious. So for what it's worth, that's just what I would offer, because it takes the attention off the conflict and on the behaviors that you desire, the outcomes that you desire as the supervisor.
It's a very effective way to shift behavior, to shift and bring about accountability within systems. So really good. You could actually do both of those, the 360 that sets the initial feedback loop up and enables you, therefore, to start talking about the things that you're not supposed to know about because you haven't seen it. And once it's out on the table, everything becomes part of the journey of setting goals and setting accountability. And then once it's out there, you can continue to go back to it and say, how are things going? Let's check again. I'm going to go back to these individuals. I'm going to kind of watch and gauge. Another hand, and do you still want to? Okay.
When you do this 360 evaluation, would you give him one as well?
Yeah. Self-evaluations are always part of any. I do 360s all the time, and I always ask the individual to rate themselves as well.
Could you tell me how many negatives would be in the option of just addressing it with the person who shared the problem and holding them accountable and saying, you need to go tell this individual directly, or like I will, or something like that?
So I think I can interpret what your question is. So you would want Bruce to go to the individuals that are complaining about so-and-so, to go directly to so-and-so, and if they don't, then you will.
What are all the negatives with that?
So the one negative is as soon as you step in to fix it, you are triangled, and then you own the problem. They don't. Now, is there a time when that is appropriate for supervisors in leadership positions? Yeah, there is an appropriate time to use that. You have to use that judiciously, though, because ultimately you will be the one who bears the stress of owning a problem that's not really yours. So it becomes your problem when those individuals on his team start quitting or not wanting to hang around church, or their behavior is adjusted to accommodate that. And so that can become an entry point for him to engage this triangle. So he can go, hey, so-and-so, I've noticed that these individuals don't want to hang around you. What's that about? Now we're using creative questioning. It's a Socratic method to see what's going on. And if that individual says, I have no idea, it's like, let's ask them. Now we're moving towards exposure of what the issues are. And then it's some form of that intervention that you are describing without the full-on overwhelm, blow up. I mean, there are strategies to do that in leadership without taking ownership of the problem. Does that make sense? Was there another hand? Does that help?
I have
One more question for that. When you're addressing him, you talked about, well, let's ask them. What does that look like?
Say that again.
That sounds like you're getting into the triangle if you say, well, let's ask them.
Let's ask them. I'm coming up alongside of the individual who has the problem and saying, let's go ask. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. Let's go ask what the issues are to see.
Go together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you want to do in any of these circumstances is you want to keep a dyadic relationship. You know what that is? Triadic is 3. That's a triangle. You want to keep it dyadic. So we want that individual to own it. If they're not willing to, we have to walk with them. And so we walk a fine line. I'm wired for discipleship. My mindset and my mantra is that God uses everything to grow us into discipleship. So there are going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly situations. All of it God uses. So everything, absolutely everything is about discipleship and making disciples. And so what I want to do is I want to take him with me. If he resists that, then I have a conversation about why he's resisting it. See what I'm doing? Yeah.
Question about that, because even with the 360 and the creative ways of going about and bringing that information out, you're still solidifying the triangle. Is the difference that you're highlighting to us that like we are, like in that situation, we are, as the direct report, solidifying the triangle between the grievance and our staff member? That's our job. But we're not touching the triangle that is the third party and the staff member.
Good.
Yes.
Spot on. Did y'all understand what he just said? No? Try again, Chris.
Put it on the triangle.
Come on up.
Take the mic.
While he's doing that, everything that I do is about making disciples. Everything is a teachable moment. So what he's doing right now, that's intentional. I trust Chris. He's got this. And that's a triangle there, right there.
Nope, that's not the one I'm looking for. So the issue, one of the issues is between the third party and your staff member. And in that situation, you as the direct report are getting triangles. The other issue is between the grievance, so to speak, and the direct report, and you've got your third party over here. If I've got my triangles right, then as the direct report, you should be working over here, trying to close this triangle and make this grievance make sense about why you as the direct report have this issue, not stepping in and closing this triangle, but avoiding this over here, getting pulled into the conflict between your staff member and the third party. Is that a fair way of saying that?
Yeah. Do y'all understand that? Did y'all get that? Bruce, you are not convincing me that you get it.
Yeah, I think I understand the concept.
Well, that makes sense, because I think maybe you might understand more than I do.
No, you have this. So the broader triangle for the direct report is that they are now triangled into what's best for the church. Do you see that layer? So there's now a need for a leader, and you were trying to bring this out in the way you were asking the question. There's a dimension where the direct report is responsible for the overall health of the church, the congregation. And what do we do when you have half of the staff not showing up because they don't want to be near so-and-so? So something has to be addressed. How you do that is going to be key. And what Chris just represented is a very clear avenue to try to do that. Just in terms of time, we have just a few more minutes. Another question or the same question?
The question, to follow up with that, just the question. So if what I hear you saying is that there are healthy triangles, but also unhealthy triangles, is that what I was just hearing and seeing in the diagram? That there is a place for healthy triangles if there's, again, I think in the beginning you did kind of speak about there were times where you might have a third party, a counselor, a judge, a supervisor, a mediator. So is that what that diagram is?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. The subtlety behind that is, yes, it is a triangle, but what you want to do is you want to have an emotional separation. I tried to do that just slightly here. You want to have an emotional distance so that you are not emotionally tied into the conflict that's original, so that you can step in and actually facilitate the detriangling process. That's what mediators, that's what arbitrators, that's what moderators, that's what they do. That's their job. Counselors.
That's really helpful because I think that was super clarifying, because my question was, all right, I'm coaching people or a counselor is stepping in, and there are times where suddenly I'm working with a married couple, and suddenly now I'm like, oh wait, I think I've got more going on here than what I want. It's for you to work this out. All I'm doing is helping you figure that out from there. So you're not necessarily just suddenly the direct report is just like, oh, in this case, oh yeah, good. Whew, I don't have to do anything with this. Great, they can work it out. No, it's not like that, but you're not being part of that emotional triangle mess, if you will.
Yeah. To diagram what both Chris and what you just said, it's taking this whole thing as one side of a triangle with the direct report. And this is the church. So our accountability is we need to create healthy systems within our churches. And so we have a responsibility to step into a triangle when necessary. But the key factor is we need to, as I illustrated up here, we need to separate ourselves emotionally enough that we can do the role of a coach or counselor to the system and not take emotional responsibility for the conflict. Yeah. Got a microphone.
Okay, thanks. I just had a question too. You were talking earlier about like truth tellers, how they get slammed down sometimes for making a comment that everybody was thinking, no one wanted to say, but it doesn't look good, let's say, that you told the truth. So how is that resolved? Like, can the person listening say, I'm sorry you felt that way? Something like as a mediator, not taking it on, but also not slamming it down. No, that's not true. Or yes, that is. So it's not an agreement and it's not a rejection, but it's more like, I'm sorry you felt that way. Like, you want to tell me more of your experience? That kind of thing.
Reverse those
Yeah.
two questions.
Yeah.
Start always with getting more information. What is it that makes you feel that?
Right.
What is it that's going on that brings this conclusion to you?
Yeah.
What have you tried to do when you've addressed this directly? Oh, you haven't addressed it directly? Really, that's what needs to happen next.
Right. And there's some solution there as opposed to just acceptance or rejection when the person just, needs to talk about something and doesn't know where to go with it.
Yeah, really, really important, especially in the context of churches like ECC. You guys are are open to the gifts of the Spirit. You do prophetic ministries. I really value that. It's who I am. But not every prophet or self-proclaimed prophet is a true prophet. And so you have to judge what those messages are. When you have individuals, and I have them, come up to me periodically, the Lord told me to tell you this. I'm always suspicious first. What is it that the Lord wants you to tell me? And if it's that the church has to do X or Y, my next questions are, what is it that's going on that's leading you to say that? So I want to judge the fruit of a prophetic statement, always. And I want to judge the prophetic statement from the standpoint of, is it designed to build up the body of Christ? So I have way too many prophetic voices that have come to me over the years that stand on the sidelines and pronounce judgment on the church, but they're nowhere in the body. So I ignore them. I don't care how accurate they may be. The prophetic ministry is to build up the body of Christ. That's what Paul communicates. So truth tellers, I use in quotation marks. Because we need to discern together what that truth is really trying to point out. Is that all right? We have a question over there.
So, just a comment and a shameless plug and two quick questions. But my head is like kind of spinning. I mean, this is just fascinating. I would suggest that it's a bit of revolutionary teaching on the story of David and Goliath, but it's great. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
So my wife and I have been watching The House of David recently.
Yeah,
and
powerful show.
I would highly recommend it. They clearly take some artistic liberties, but I believe it fits in with scripture, and you will not view the story in the same way. It's a lot like The Chosen.
Just a little footnote to that, for those of you who are a little squeamish, it gets pretty graphic. So just be aware of that.
The Bible is graphic. I mean, so in that,
Yeah.
I think it's accurate. But so just to invite your comment on two things, and if there's nothing more there, it's fine. But you had at one point said, if it's not a problem to me, it's not a problem. You gave that quote. I would just invite more comment on that. And the other thing is the positions on the triangle. Would you say that there's significance to where you place particular individuals on one of the three legs of the triangle? Thank you.
Let me address the second part of your question first. Not really. A triangle is a triangle. It takes three sides. What you want to identify is where the source conflict is and where you are in the triangle. So if you feel stress and you are sucked into a triangulation experience, pausing as soon as you recognize, hey, I'm feeling stuck in something and I'm not sure what's going on, diagram it. Just take a triangle and say, this is what's going on. You may discover, a moment ago I said, you're dealing with a Bermuda Triangle. Those are the complex triangles that kind of look like this. And you laugh, but I've seen some really difficult conflicts in churches that this is how we diagram them. And what you do in that massive Bermuda-like triangle is step number one is you identify where you are. Because you need to define you in any complex situation like this. And when you find you, the next thing that you need to do is identify who in this system, this chaos, has the greatest capacity to evoke change in the chaos and bring about healing. And then go after that person. And equip that person to differentiate themselves, to de-triangle themselves, because you will discover that when you get them to de-triangle themselves, it impacts the whole chaos movement. That's family systems thinking. When you affect change in one party within a chaotic system, provided that that one party has the greatest capacity to evoke change in the system, you end up changing the entire system. If you choose, this is the counter, if you choose to pay attention to the most anxious individual, you will actually solidify the chaos and reproduce it ad nauseum. So the one who is the squeakiest wheel is not the one that you should be paying the most attention to. Yes, sir.
Before that, I think there was the second part.
Oh, yeah. What was the second part?
The problem is not my problem, or something like that.
It was simply a quote that you offered. If it's not a problem to me, it's not a problem. I'm kind of taking it out of context, but I just wanted to see if there was more.
Yeah, that's a comment that I have heard in one form or another in various different churches. It's a denial of responsibility. It's a denial of the reality of a problem. I've seen it in situations where the church has gone through some, let me think real quickly. I did a consult at a church where the pastor had an affair with, this is so cliche, with the organist. And the leaders of the church said, there's no problem. There was a complete denial. Why? Because they were getting what is called secondary gain. The church was functioning and everything was okay. It was under the carpet. But from my vantage point, sin, no matter how deep you bury it, it shows itself. Sin always leaves traces. And so what they were basically doing is, if it's not a problem for him, it's not a problem for us. We don't have to address it. And yet my response in that situation was, then why did you bring me in? Because we're having conflict. Oh, what's that about? And I had to do the rabbit trail to get them to see, there's something under the carpet here. Do you not recognize that? And you have created a culture of dishonor by virtue of what you are continuing to do. Yeah. And I don't know timing wise. Are we okay for one more?
I just thought it might be worth asking this question for you to speak to. What if, maybe as a leader, an example of this would be if a child comes, now you have this power thing where a child comes and like this is happening, and you're gonna, well, you need to talk to your teacher, or you need to talk to whoever that was. So that's the more basic, but it could also be someone who is an adult but just isn't at a healthy place to be able to do that. How do you handle a situation like that?
So great question. My qualifier is if the child, sorry, I'm going to get away from this microphone here. If the child is dealing with issues of abuse, that negates all of this. We step in and we advocate as appropriate. So given all of that, in normal circles of triangulation, I am a firm believer that, I don't know where you are on this, I'm a firm believer that every child, no matter what age they are, is an opportunity for making disciples. And so if I step in and just be their voice, then I'm actually reinforcing the power structure that they're responding to. So my job as a disciple maker is to come up alongside of the child and say, what is it that you're actually feeling? And can I help you put some words to that? And then I equip them to have their own voice and then say, hey, the way we deal with that here is we go directly to the person. And I know that that may be hard, so I'm going to do this with you. Is that okay? And so we're going to model it together. And what we're doing is we're actually equipping them, not just for that moment and that situation, but for every other situation that's destined to come their way. So that's the way I operate. And if you're okay with that, depending on the severity of the issue, like I said, if there's abuse involved, it negates all of this, and then I step in and become an advocate. The way I say this in my church is, if a child is being abused, Jersey Dave comes out, and Jersey Dave will win. Jersey Dave will win. So look out. And I will fight for that child. But in normal circumstances, our job is to make disciples. That's what Jesus said at the end of Matthew's gospel. We need to make disciples. All ages are appropriate. I have heard profound things coming out of a 2-year-old that are God-given. Thank you all for your time, for your efforts, for your questions, for your situations that you're facing. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. Never underestimate the power of triangulation. Also, never underestimate how you can see this acted out just about on every page of the Old and New Testament. It is very clear. This is God's design for all of us to be working out our salvation with fear and trembling. Trust the Holy Spirit to guide you through these difficult conversations. And you will be amazed at how God uses even these hard situations to bring about a greater capacity of discipleship for you all. God bless you. Thank you.